Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. In today's session, I'm going to start with a new chapter, that is reaching the age of adolescence. Reaching the age of adolescence, that means the phase of development, the phase of secondary development, right? And as this word development I'm using here, that means it is related to the growth. So let's see what is there in this chapter. Out of all important characteristic features, growth and reproduction, they are the two important characteristic features of the living things, right? It is a well-known fact that all living organisms, they undergoes the process of reproduction. That means they are able to produce the similar organisms of their own kind, isn't it? And this when the reproduction is studied, we just study about the sexual and the asexual reproduction. In the case of sexual reproduction, it is not so the individual is able to reproduce at any time. This process is taking place after the organisms are attaining the sexual maturity. That means after they have developed their sex organs properly. So this growth, this development among such organisms is divided into two different phases. So as we consider human beings here in this chapter, so let me tell you that the growth in human beings is divided into two phases. That is primary phase and the secondary phase, right? Primary phase is actually related to the growth of body structure, right? Let us say, for example, increase in height or the weight, replacement of teeth, right? So all these are actually related to the primary growth, fine, where the body is actually developing, the organs, they are becoming fully functional, right? Infant is born, it is undergoing a development phase where all its organs are now becoming much more mature, they're becoming developed. They have developed since in the gestation period, but now they are actually acquiring the maturity, right? So this is the primary phase. If I consider the secondary phase, then in this secondary phase there is the development of the reproductive organs. There is a release of various hormones which will help in the maintenance or the development of the secondary part of our body, right? And especially it is related to the maturation of the sex organs. So these sex organs in this phase, it begins to produce the gametes, right? Now, as I said, that the secondary growth, it is it is taking place under the influence of specific hormones, and these hormones are known as the sex hormones, right? You know what do you mean by hormones? Hormones are the chemical messengers. They are some chemicals which are secreted by the endocrine glands, and these chemicals actually control the growth and the other functions of our body. They gives the signal to the specific part of the body to perform its function, and since it is giving the signal, thus they are known as the messengers, right? Secretion of these sex hormones, it begins in a particular period of time, right? After a certain age. So that particular age when these hormones are they begin to secrete, and they begin the reproductive growth of an organism, that period is known as the adolescence or the puberty. Let's see what exactly this puberty and adolescence means. Puberty is the time of physical change that transforms a child's body into an adult's body. That means it is simply related to the growth of the physical parts of our body, right? So that time period, that entire phase where it begins to develop, or the secondary growth begins, and till the age where the maturity of the reproductive part of body has been attained, that period is known as the puberty. Now what is this adolescence? Adolescence is the time when a body is changing, not only physically, but a person is showing emotional, mental, as well as social changes. And these particular changes which are associated with this adolescent period, they are basically necessary for a mental maturity of a person. It is necessary for the adulthood. Puberty, it is simply modifying the body structure, right? But a sense of maturity is actually now related to adolescence. So there is just a very minor difference between the two things. There are people sometimes that they get mature. I mean, the body has developed in a well mannered, but still they are having some childish behavior, isn't it? So in that case, we can say it is just a puberty. So, I mean, this is how we can just differentiate between the puberty and the adolescence. Physical development along with the mental development is related to adolescence. So, in short, we can just summarize that this puberty, it is taking place during the age of adolescence. Fine. Now, whether it is puberty or the adolescence, both these two things, or the growth in both these phases, it is taking place because of the hormones. You know which is the age when these hormones are secreted and from which part of the body? Let's see that. See, these hormones, as I said, it is secreted during the period of puberty. It does not mean that as the puberty period is over, after that the hormones are not secreted. It is not like that. This is the period when it is beginning and the sexual maturity has been attained. So this particular period, it actually begins around the age of 10 or 11 years, and this lasts up to 18 or 19 years of age. However, the characteristics and the age for the males and the females, it may vary. Like generally it happens in the females, this puberty begins quite at an earlier stage as compared to the boys or the males. So in females it is around around 10 years, whereas in males it may begin around 12 to 14 years of age, and further it will last up to a particular age period, right? Now of course during this puberty period, the distinct features are shown by each organism, that is by the males and the females. Some characteristics are common among them while some are different. And this phase, when such changes are taking place, it is known as the reproductive phase, right? Basically during the reproductive phase, the mature gametes are released by the gonads. You know what are these gonads? Gonads are the glands which are present in the males and the females body. So they are either male gonad or the female gonad. These gonads, they actually release out the sex hormones. Fine. So male gonad, it is testes. You must be knowing about it. You have studied this in the previous chapter, right? So testes, they are meant for the secretion of the or the production of the sperms. And these sperms, they are secreted under the influence of the hormone testosterone. I hope you remember this term. Whereas in the case of females, a female gonad is known as ovary, and these ovaries are meant for the production of the ovum, right? And ovum is basically it is produced under the influence of different hormones which are secreted by the pituitary gland, but the maturation of the body or the during of the reproductive parts of the body during this phase, it is under the influence of specific hormones which are secreted by the gonads, and those hormones are estrogen and the progesterone. So these sex hormones, that is testosterone in the male and the estrogen and progesterone in the females, these hormones, they are responsible for the changes which are taking place or which are occurring during the puberty. So let's see what are these changes during the secondary growth. So here is a chart which is showing the common and different features that are occurring during the puberty in male and female, of course. Fine. So some of the common features are like the hair growth. See, you are at the age of adolescence. You must be observing it personally. This hair growth pattern varies among different organisms, different individuals. right? Generally the hair growth is taking place under the arms, that is in the armpits, in both males and females. Then there is more hair growth over the limbs in the genital area. Then it is observed in males over the facial parts also, in the form of mustaches and the beard, right? So this growth of the hair is actually it is an indication that the secondary growth is now beginning, right? Well, the how much hair growth is going to take place among different individual, that intensity, that frequency is going to vary. Fine. The second is the characteristic which is observed in the skin. There is the pimple or the acne generation at this age, right? The skin becomes more and more oily. You know why is this so? This is because during the puberty there is the increased activity of the sweat and the sebaceous glands. These glands, they are present in the skin, right? And they become very active at this age, due to which there is the increased sweating, right? Now of course the sweating or the sebum which is produced or secreted by the sebaceous gland, it gets accumulated over the skin. If it is sweat, definitely it may evaporate, isn't it? But the traces which are left out, or if let us say sebum is present over there, it comes in the contact with some dust particles or some bacteria or some external factors which are exposed to it. Then what will happen? There will be the formation of the acne or the pimples. Acne is actually the dead skin, right? Whereas pimples, you can see that there is a minute boils which are filled up with some liquid like pus or something. So the generation of these acne and pimples are common at this age. Even because of the sebaceous glands, the sebum which is secreted, the skin becomes oily. And again, this oily skin is one of the reasons that why the dust particles get stuck over the skin and causes the such type of infections among them. The next feature is the fat deposition. Uh, you know where this fat deposition is more prominent among the boys and girls? You must be knowing, you are aware of these points. Let me just summarize. See, this fat deposition actually brings the change in the body shape. Shoulders, they generally get broadened as a result of this secondary growth. In case of the girls, the pelvic region, that is the region below the waist, right, it becomes wider. In the case of boys, the muscles of the body grow more prominently than in the girls. There is a breast development which is more prominent in the girls or in the females. And these breasts, of course, it is required, it is associated with the mammary glands also. Right. So this breast development is the muscular part, but under that, inside that, there is the development of the mammary glands also, which in the case in the gestation, I'm sorry, it is post pregnancy, it is secreting the milk. So that is serving as a nutrition for the infants or the newborn babies. Next common feature is the increase in height, which is not written here, but it is of course one of the important point. You know, this puberty or adolescence, it is characterized by the growth spurt. That means there is a rapid increase in the height and weight of the boys as well as the girls. It is often seen that the rate of growth, it varies from person to person, but generally it is observed that girls grow faster than the boys initially. But they both will reach their maximum height around 18 years of age. Well, nowadays it is observed that the individuals which are having quite short height, they are undergoing some hormone therapy or something so as to increase their height. But of course, these hormones which are taken from outside, they are, I suppose, they are not very good to take because they disturb the normal hormone balance in our body. Uh, Besides that, I can say that the increase in height of a person is affected by two basic things. One is the growth hormones, right? The hormones which are secreted by the pituitary gland. So these growth hormones, they specifically and they enlarge or they increases the length of the bones of the limbs. and this increase in the bones, in the length of the bones of the limbs, it basically brings the increase in the height. Now this is quite clear that if the bones are they are increasing in their length, then the new cells are being formed, isn't it? They need more energy at this age so as to satisfy this particular function of our body. And for that, of course, the individuals require nutritional food and the energy. So a person should take care of a balanced diet, of a diet of itself, so as to just to fulfill this basic need. Further, there are some basic different features also which are developing among males and the females. So that is in the case of male, I have just mentioned previously the development of hairs in the form of mustaches and the beard. Besides that, the maturation of testes take place. Testes, they are the male gonads which are actually secreting the hormone testosterone. So this is one of the function which is taking place during the secondary growth. Further, all this growth is controlled by the testosterone, right? During this puberty, there is the enlargement and occasional erection of penis in the males. Penis is a male copulatory organ, right? And this organ, it shows enlargement, and occasionally it is observed that it becomes erect, and it is releasing, or it is just ejaculating out some liquid or fluid that is known as the semen. The semen is containing the sperms. So at this age, there is the production of sperms in the males, right? Besides this, there is a deepening or cracking of voice also. There is a change in the voice of the males. Of course, this change in voice is also taking place in female, but the pattern is quite different. In the case of males, it is a sort of cracking, right? Whereas the females, they are showing the high pitch voice. In the case of males, there is the outgrowth which is observed in the throat region, and that outgrowth is known as the Adam's apple. See, here is this picture which is showing this protruding out structure which is known as the Adam's apple, right? Basically, it is a voice box, or it is a larynx which is which begins to grow at this age. Fine. So this is the specific feature in the males, but definitely in the case of girls also there is the change in the voice. Fine. So girls are having high pitched voice, whereas boys are having a deep voice. Well, in the case of females, there is the development of breast, and this point I have already explained, right? Besides this, there is the maturation of ovary. Ovary is a female gonad which is responsible for the production of the ovum, right? And besides that, it is also secreting the sex hormones known as the estrogen and the progesterone. So these hormones are bringing out the different changes in the females during the secondary growth. At this age, there is the beginning of menstrual cycle in the females. This menstrual cycle, basically, you know what happens? Ovum which is produced by the female, it is going to fuse with the male gamete so as to produce the zygote, and the zygote, it will further form the embryo and is producing the new individual. But this process is it will take place all the time. It is not necessary, isn't it? So what happens? This ovum which is produced here, it is released out from the body if it is not fused with the sperms. See, when they are produced, if the sperm is available, it is going to produce the zygote. But if the sperms are not available, then these ovum are getting it will get degenerated. Now, besides this, the estrogen has been produced, right? This estrogen is it is increasing the thickness of the uterus. So if the if this pregnancy is not established during this period, this extra thickness is again going to be deteriorated. These cells which have been developed, which have been produced here in the uterus, even they will get shed away, and due to this there is the release of blood also. So this process, the release of unfertilized egg and these deteriorated tissues and the blood, it is released out from the female's body. It takes place every month. So this cycling, this release is known as a menstrual cycle. However, I'm going to explain this menstrual cycle quite in detail later, but for now, let's see that the another feature here is the darkening of skin near the nipples. So this is the another feature which is observed among the females. So now, beside these particular features, people or the individuals at this age, they also show some mental or emotional changes, right? There is a drastic change in their behavior. Let's see what are these. So generally at this age, or I can say these adolescents, they are actually they become self-conscious. They become more independent, right? They know what is wrong and what is right, or generally what do you know, they do something and they consider that whatever they are doing is correct. They don't like that somebody interfere in the things that they are doing or they are saying, or they want a kind of support, right? They becomes more conscious, they get hurt very soon. And at this age there is a change in the mood also. The behavior, sometimes they are very happy and sometimes they are very upset. So such type of mood swings also occur in at this age, and this actually happens because of the change in the hormone level among them. The hormonal levels, not only the sex hormones, the other hormones also shows some variations. Besides that, there is the intellectual development which is taking place at this period. They tend to spend considerable time in thinking. These thoughts, now they can be positive and they can be negative also. It depends on the circumstances, on the situations, the self nature, right? There are many factors which are affecting this thing. But of course, due to changes in the hormone levels, there is the change in their thoughts also. They experience emotional changes, right? They become very sensitive at this age. Besides this, they become quite attracted towards the opposite sex, right? Further also, they become they like to see themselves in the mirror. They like to prove themselves like anything. Then they like to be noticed by others, right? They like to be encouraged for different purposes. They like to be they like to be best in whatever they are doing. So these are some things, some basic experiences, or they are the basic characteristics which a person is experiencing at the age of adolescence, right? And of course you guys are at this age itself, so I know you can enjoy this, you can experience it personally, right? So further, now beside this point, let me tell you about the menstrual cycles that takes place in the females. And of course it is very important, and the process is quite complex, and thus it is said that females, they show complex development as compared to the males. So let's see what is this. When there is a onset of puberty in the females, there are two ovaries. See, ovaries are present all the time, but during this puberty, these ovaries, they start producing egg, right? Now, in a single month, there is only a single ovum or a single egg which is produced by a single ovary, right? Now, alternatively, each ovary is producing a single egg. Now, these single, as I'm saying, it is produced only one in a month. So it is a period of, I can say, around 28 to 30 days when the ovary is releasing out the ovum, right? So this process by which the ovum is released by an ovary in the females is known as the ovulation. Fine. Now, what will happen to this ovum, right? Basically, what is the function? it participates in the reproduction process, right? This ovum, it can fuse with the sperm so as to produce the zygote and begin the process of reproduction. But is this so that it will happen? Is this necessary? No. So what will happen to this ovum? You can think of it. The ovum which is not fertilized, now it has to be released out from the body, right? So initially during ovulation it is released out in the fallopian tube. It is produced, it is released in the cavity, which is further transferred into the this fallopian tube and then to the uterus, right? And further, when it is there in the uterus and it is not fertilized, then this unfertilized ova is actually released out from the body. So this release of this unfertilized egg, right, from the body is actually known as the menstruation. Fine. Now, since this release of ova is taking place in a cyclic manner in every month, thus this is known as the menstrual cycle. And besides this, during this phase when the ovulation is taking place, their ovaries are also secreting some specific hormones. Fine. These hormones, they help in building up of the uterus. They develop the uterus by producing or more tissues, or they are increasing the thickness of the uterus. Why is it happening? Because if the ova is getting fused with the sperm, then reproductive cycle is to take place, right? So body is getting prepared to get pregnant, in simple terms. But if this pregnancy does not take place, these tissues, they also get deteriorated. And since these tissues are broken down, so definitely there is the release of blood also. So in a female, these unfertilized eggs plus this blood and the uterine tissues, they all are released out from the body through the vagina, and this takes place every month. So this particular material which is released out, it is known as the menstrual flow. This flow outflow is known as the menstrual flow, and the process is known as the menstruation. Now this bleeding, right, it will take place for around 5 days. The number of days may vary in different individuals, but there is a specific period in females during which such release is taking place. So this menstrual flow or this menstrual cycle is actually showing the maturation of the reproductive system, right? The body is getting prepared to participate in the process of the reproduction. All these processes are not observed in the males. In male, there is the release of sperms, right? So that is the released out by the process of ejaculation. Now, in this case, when the menstrual cycle is taking place, I said there is a release of hormone which is helping in the development of the uterus also, right? But I should say that there is a series of process and the different hormones are secreted in the different period of time. See, during this phase, basically what will happen? Initially, ovary is going to, it will become ready so as to produce the ova. Initially, it is getting prepared. It is preparing itself. So that phase is there. After that, when the ova is, prepared, now it has to be released out. So that we are saying it's ovulation, isn't it? Now, after ovulation, the hormones are secreted. A different set of hormone is secreted so as to develop it. So entire this phase is divided into different phases. I will just show you one flowchart so as to explain this point. See, this is a flowchart which is just simply explaining the menstrual cycle. This month I have taken 28 days. The ideal number of days in the cycle is around 28. It may be 26, it may be 30 according to the different individuals. So in this case, let us say first 5 days, they are the menstrual cycle. It is a phase when the menstrual flow is taking place. The day on which the bleeding is starting, we are considering that day as the day 1 of the menstrual cycle. Fine. So up to 5 or 6 days this menstrual flow will take place, right? Now after this bleeding, further ovary is again preparing itself so as to produce the egg. Fine. So during this period the egg is ovary is preparing the egg now. Now on 14th day, around I can say average time period is from 13th to 15th day. 13th day, that means day 1 is the day when the bleeding has started. Now after that, when the 13th day is there, then there is the ovulation. That means this prepared egg is released out of the ovary. Now this ovum is present here, and it is present, the average life is approximately 3 to 4 days, not more than that. So if during these days, if the sperm is available, fine, then the fusion will take place or the fertilization will occur. But if it is not available, further in the further successive time period, this ovum is going to be it will be degenerated. Besides that, I must say that if the fertilization has not taken place, the corpus luteum or the specific part of the ovary which has released out the egg, it will also fade away. So during this period, initially there is the thickening of uterus, and then it is getting detached, thus it is becoming deteriorated, and finally after the 28th day the menstrual flow will begin again. So these tissues which have generated during this period of time, and this unfertilized egg, and of course the blood, all this will together release out from the body in the form of menstrual flow. So this phase is known as the menstruation. Further, the phase of a female life when this menstrual cycle is beginning, or you can say when the first time this menstrual flow occurs, that period is known as that is known as the menarche. Now this actually begins usually at the age of 10 to 14 years, and further there is a time period in females when the menstruation is going to stop completely, right? Further, the cycling is now not taking place. So that period or that phase when the menstruation is getting stopped, that phase is known as menopause, and at an average I can say generally it is 45 to 50 years. So all these phases, they are associated with the hormonal changes, and the changes in the hormones, of course, they brings a drastic changes in the behavior of a particular individual. So this is all about the menstruation. Further we will discuss much about the topic and the chapter that we are going to continue in the next session. So till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.